moment ago, you talked about the death of a marriage being like a physical death. So tell me a little bit more about your perspective on that.
Yeah, this is one of the things I've been able to articulate as a rabbi. I've certainly done a lot of funerals. I've been at a lot of bedsides where people pass away, and also been part of people's lives as they mourn and they grieve afterwards. We all know that there is a process to grief and mourning. There is denial. There is, and I'm forgetting all the stages right now. Give me a second to look them up, and I'll.
There's denial. There's bargaining.
It's denial, and then I'm sure your editor can do something about this. Yeah. What are you saying?
Well, you look it up, but it's denial, bargaining, sadness, or depression. I can't remember.
Yeah, they're all in there.
And then acceptance. There's one more.
Yeah, acceptance is the last one. That's right. I'm a little embarrassed now that I can't remember it. I was so well versed in it.
Hey, listen, I do this for a living, and I have to look it up. As you can see, I can't rattle them off.
That's right. But so you did really well there. But so I would suggest that we go through all those stages in our lives as well. Particularly when it comes to divorce, because there's the death of the marriage first and foremost, right? There's the death of the, vision that you had for yourself and your family at the time, and what that looked like. There's this whole kind of mourning process for that as well. And you have to go through stages of denial and anger and depression and bargaining and acceptance. And again, I think I put those out of order, but they're really easy to find.
Honestly, though, Noam, I find that they don't always come in a certain order. Sometimes they can coexist. I mean, they aren't necessarily in that order. So I don't ever worry too much about getting them in the right order.
No, that's a great point. I appreciate you bringing that up. That actually makes me feel a lot better. Thank you for saying that. Because we don't go through them in a linear process. You go back and forth between them. But divorce requires going through those stages too, and just naturally going through those and recognizing that you're going through those stages is, I think, what's really important. Because if you can identify how you feel as a result, then you can possibly identify how you feel in those stages. There's a difference, though, when it comes to the death of a marriage versus the death of a real loved one, which is to say that, first of all, it's not like that person isn't around anymore. You may not see them as much, but sometimes you have to interact with them and you have to deal with the residual feelings that are left over, right? If someone dies, you can feel abandoned and angry at them, but you come to kind of accept it because, well, they're dead and there's nothing you can really do about it. You have to sort it out in your own particular way. But then when you go through it in divorce, right, you sometimes have to wrestle with those things because you see the person on a regular basis. It may also be comforting when someone literally dies to go to a place where you remember them, right? To your favorite park or to listen to a favorite song. It might be difficult at first because there's a twinge of bitterness, but there's something also sweet in knowing that that person was in your life and they gave you a gift by having that memory. And so when that song comes up, you eat their favorite food or something like that, you remember them in really lovely ways.
Yeah.
Not true when it happens in divorce. You can't necessarily go to the same park that you once went to with your former lover or partner, because it may bring up a lot of negative emotions about things. You might get really angry. And then I would also argue finally that while there are, and I'll speak formally from the Jewish tradition at this point, there are formal rituals laid out to help people mourn and grieve, right? There are stages in death and grief that allow a person to do what they need to do to go through those emotional circumstances. There's a period of real isolation when death first occurs. There is also the burial that occurs. There is also a mourning process afterwards that is really formalized in the Jewish tradition called Shiva, in which you pray, in which you gather, in which you eat, in which you support one another. Your fridge will be full. If someone dies and your community responds, you'll have food for weeks, right? Not true if it happens in divorce. Nobody's coming over, filling your fridge with food. And there are very few rituals short of, I would say, the get process, which is a matter of dissolving your marriage in a Jewish way. Get spelled G-E-T-T, which is another formal Jewish document. Essentially, when you get married in Judaism, you get a ketubah, which is a Jewish legal document, which outlines the fact that you're married and you have responsibilities to one another. But there's also the get, which happens after, once you're divorced, that says this marriage no longer exists. And there's a certain ritual to that of, if you can stand to be in the same place as your ex, they will hand the document to you, and you have to walk several feet in order to demonstrate that you've now got it, right? So you're kind of walking away from things. But outside of that, there's nothing really that formal. So we have to be creative. And so I've learned to adapt other Jewish rituals of letting go, of rebirth, of transitioning to divorce in really specific ways. There's the mikvah, which is a ritual bath, which we normally use for life cycle transitions and conversion. There's something known as tashlich, which we throw away our mistakes and our sins during Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, the holiest time during the year. And so we cast those things off. And I've used those in different ways to help me process my own divorce, to leave it behind and transition into a new life, and to let go of any number of different things. But they're not overwhelmingly formalized as divorce rituals.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And it's kind of like you're cleansing in a sense. You're cleansing.
That's exactly right.
So you're able to do that for people that you work with, that your clients. Okay.
I try to encourage it as much as possible. Whether or not they're open to it is another thing altogether, but I will walk with people through those moments and provide those opportunities for them with guidance and care so that they can grow in those ways. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're using some rituals that are familiar to them, but kind of reframing them for them.
Well, I think speaking to Jews in a particularly Jewish way is what's comforting about it, right? It gives them a sense of familiarity. So I would encourage anyone who's working in a faith-based way to speak in the language of that faith and whatever other language people can hear you, because that's how you're best going to get your message across and assist them.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love it.